Welcome back, Jules and Gems, to another episode here on the Vantage Point. I'm your lady, Azandi Malinki, your host, and you're tuned into your scripturally aware, culturally awakened podcast or channel. I hope everyone had a great week. I'm excited for today's conversation, and I pray that you're excited for today's conversation. We have not been on and realized that the comments were turned off. So every week I'm on here like, comment, comment. Oh my gosh, nobody's got what's up, Day? That man must not like it. What's going on? Right. And the whole time the comments were off. So please go back, comment, tell us some of the favorite topics that you like. Tell us some things you learned. Tell us what you would like us to discuss or talk about so we can deliver the message. So, again, I pray everyone's doing well. Now, today's conversation is wrapped around fairy tales, right? Fairy tales and how its reality shapes our lives today as men and women alike. Because I know a lot of times fairy tales may seem very womanish, may seem very girlish, but it actually shapes all of our lives. And it actually has a big impact on melanated people in the way that we perceive the world, in the way that we show up in our behavior, the way that we show up in our beliefs and our expectations for each other. So we just kind of discussed briefly about that in the pre-talk. So go back and watch that video when it releases. But today we have with us the expert, my teacher, my favorite person to talk to. I'm very biased in my statements, and is Reverend Dr. AJ Varmah. We're going to bring him on the screen in just a second. But I want to kind of just give a little bit more context to when we say fairy tales, exactly what we mean, right? Because I was one of those people, and I hope my sessions hearing me where, I was like, I never really had many fairy tales growing up. I never really watched many of the Cinderellas and the Rapunzels, and that just wasn't my thing. I was like, I never been big on like grand weddings and all of these things. I was like, so I'm straight, I'm good. And so he was able to share with me that I'm just as jacked up as everybody else, and that fairy tales do in fact exist outside of what we believe them to be. And so, he said to me one time, well, didn't you read like, the urban books, and didn't you read this book and that book? And I had to sit back and think like, wait a minute, what you telling me here? What are we saying? And in that, I was able to discover a lot. I was taught a lot. I didn't discover it. I was taught a lot, and it made me open my eyes, right, to a different perception of fairy tales. So again, I was speaking with someone the other day, and then we're going to bring our guest on. Where, I was like talking about the fairy tales. I said, actually, we're having an episode this week about that. That's crazy that this is coming up in a conversation. And she said the same thing. I said, like, I don't really watch fairy tales or believe in fairy tales. I want to just read this really quick where um we watch reality TV shows. We watch all of these shows, and that is the fairy tale. And I'm going to ask Vasesh to speak more to it. But it says here that reality TV is based on fairy tales by playing on viewers' familiar fantasies of true love, dramatic transformations, and happily ever after endings. Now, there's more to that we're going to talk about, but I just wanted to slip that in there before you click off saying fairy tales, thinking that we're talking about something else. No, we're talking about you and me alike. All right. Now, with that being said, welcome to the Vantage Point. We're going to bring Reverend Dr. AJ Varma on the screen. And I want to thank you for being with us today. Thank you for taking the time out to be with us another week. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Doing all right.
Good, good.
Got
Okay,
me
well,
nervous with my fairy tales. I'm nervous because
you
people gonna get
did
mad at
it. You did it. You brought you brought the conversation into reality with the book. I know my book did not just get bent. That's a real time reaction. Anyway, Children's Fairy Tales Breed Adult Religions. This is a book that you wrote. And in this book, which I'm still trying to get through, it says a lot. It's this is a 400 and just so y'all know, 455 page book. And by the time we get all the way to the titles of all the other books you've written, yeah, it's deep. So I know you have a lot to share with us today. And if you're watching, go to, is it www.journeyhomegroup.com and get this book, because it's in an hour. We can't give you everything. You know, Reverend Dr. AJ Varma can't give it all in an hour, but you can go get the book. And so before we get started, maybe that's a good way to kind of have this conversation, is what even inspired you to write or fairy tales? Like, where did you even come up with that?
That book is my mother, actually. And she didn't realize she did it. When I wrote my first book, the very first book we put out was Solar Biology versus Lunar Astrology. And when I wrote the book, printed the book out of University of Alabama at Huntsville in their printing department, picked it up Christmas Day, opened up the boxes. I ordered about 100, maybe 150. First one out the box, I'm sending it to mom because I wanted her to have it. So she gets it, reads it, and she calls me and she's like, "Oh, well, good book, but if you want to write books, what you need to write is children's books.
Mm,
Children's books, children's stories, fairy tales. That's what you need to write." And so it stuck in my mind, like, okay, one day I'll write a fairy tale book,
all
right? For
right.
children, children's fairy tales. But in order to write the children's fairy tales, I would have to understand what I didn't want it to be,
Mm,
right? What I did not want it to be. And thus the research began to understand the origins of fairy tales, how they influence our lives, and who put them together, and the European Renaissance, the Arab fairy tales, 1001 Arabian Nights, then the different mythos and fairy tales and stories of different tribes of North America, South America, as well as the continent and the Asian Pacific. And so we began to look at it from that point. But that's where the idea came from. My mom, she didn't realize she challenged me,
mhm,
right? Or maybe she
mhm.
did. I want to have to sit down and ask her. Maybe she did, but it
Mhm,
challenged me. And I knew, I said, okay, one day I'm going to put forth some children's books. But to do that, I want to make sure that I'm not putting into the children's book the thing that we need to kind of remove from the children.
right, right. Okay, that's great. So in this book, I mean, and you said you were looking at the European Renaissance, etc. And so one of the things that you didn't mention before is that these are really horror stories. Like, fairy tales are not as much beautiful as we believe them to be. So how does that look like our lives? Like, what part of that horror? And I really wasn't going to start here, but I just want to know, if you can take us to seeing how what fairy tales really are, and then how that looks like our reality in some sort of way.
Well, I think the first thing is to look at the word horror, right? Horror. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, please.
We do that all the time because we say we're a teaching church, or as the chief scribe or the pope for the Holy Cryptic Church, I like people to know that it's not something I'm just going off the top of my head. And so we look at the word horror, and we see that horror is a feeling of disgust, emotion of horror or dread. This feeling of disgust. How many times have we been disgusted by people? How many times have we been disgusted by ourselves, by our own
Mm,
behaviors, right? So we end up, it also says a thing which excites horror, a thing that excites a feeling of disgust, dread, veneration, religious awe, shaking, trembling with cold or fear, shudder, chill, to bristle with fear, to bristle, ruffling one's feathers. That's the noun. It goes further. Symptoms of a disease or in reaction to a sour or bitter taste, shivering, erection of the hairs on the skin, ruffling as of water surface. It goes even further. Abhor, to loathe, regard with repugnance, dislike intensely, literally to shrink back with horror or dread.
mhm,
So this idea of horror, and how does that relate to us? Because we're living in a world where our minds, our lives have been filled with disgust. When we
mm,
turn on the television, right, we watch a movie, and you signed up to watch this movie, and it's happened to all of us. You're watching a movie thinking it's a comedy or thinking it's a drama, and then all of a sudden it takes a turn and someone is introducing something on the screen. You're like, this, what kind of movie is this again? And now you're disgusted because you're like, man, I sat here for 45 minutes,
Mhm.
got into this movie, and now it's taking us in a direction that I didn't sign up for this.
Okay.
Same with life, same with relationships. So we end up being in a horror, we end up being in a fairy tale. When the Grimm brothers or Dickinson, Perrault, these guys, this was the European Renaissance, and
Mhm.
this was their form of entertainment. And so these fairy tales, from Cinderella to Hans and Gretel to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs,
Mhm.
to uh, Beauty and the Beast, to The Ugly Duckling, all of these, none of these were children's stories. All of these were actually adult novels, if you will, adult stories, and they were horrific and gruesome, and hearts were getting eaten and cut out of the chest, and it was really gruesome. Cinderella was a gruesome story, right? Snow White, gruesome story. The Three Bears, none of these were nice stories. Someone later on would decide to soften them up for marketing to be able to sell it to children, but the underlining message is still there. The underlining message is still there. And it makes it to where these things can negatively impact the lives of people, because they end up promoting or encouraging unrealistic expectations for our relationships, for our happiness, for our businesses, for our trade, for our religions, and and it leads to this unhealthy stereotypes, gender roles, um, setting unattainable social standards. It
Mhm.
takes us in a place, it makes us or leads us to a place where we end up feeling shame, we end up feeling inadequate. They also normalize very harmful situations like abuse, abandonment, and this happily ever after. That's everybody's favorite one, right? And happily ever after, it's just going to all work out. It glosses over the real work, the real challenges, the real lives that we have to go through to maintain relationships and life after life has gone through a crisis. You see, fairy tales end up with a wedding, or a kiss, and that's how the weddings
Mhm.
end up, right? You may kiss the bride. That's the end of the
Right.
ceremony. So fairy tales, somebody kisses you, and then you wake up. You went
Right.
into a deep sleep, and this kiss is going to wake you up. And so it puts us in a situation where it leaves out the realities of life, of daily life, and the constant struggle, effort, work that's needed to maintain healthy relationships. And people may not like it, but that's the reality, right? The idea that a single worst event is followed by a happily ever after. It
Right.
makes us end up believing that we shouldn't face our futures, we shouldn't face the challenges, which is unrealistic.
Mm.
Adults have to navigate reality. We have to
Mm.
be able to deal with adversity and overcome these things and achieve through the adversity.
Mm. Okay. So, and I see that so much today where we have conversations, anything anybody's going through or expecting, it's all right, it's gonna be all right, it's gonna work itself out. Don't even worry about it. It's already for you. But we don't prepare ourselves for what if it's not for you? What if it doesn't work out? Like what's the best way to encourage a person if it doesn't have this happily ever after type of ending? So are you saying that it already programs our mind, it already sets us up to have these false expectations about life?
Well, one of the things we say to people all the time: show me your favorite television show, your favorite movie, your favorite song growing up, your favorite children's fairy tale. Show me your favorite cartoon. All of these are
Mhm.
fairy tales. All of these imagine, and I'll show you your life, because
Mhm.
these things set in the person's mind what to expect out of life.
Mhm.
Right? We understand that having children's stories
Mhm.
was very important to the indigenous peoples of the planet. But when those children's stories are usurped by a fantasy world, not teaching you morals, decency, rules, regulations, etiquettes, with with examples by which to live, but actually putting in the minds an illusion When that happens, that child, if I was growing up watching Aquaman or Superman or Batman or Flash or Green Lantern or Hulk or Heathcliff, the cat, or Garfield, or Archie and Jughead, or whatever, or the music. If I'm listening to the love music, some Tony Braxton or some Peebo Bryson, and a whole new world. Right, he sings this a whole new world, and everyone's like, "Oh wow!" And then the magic carpet. Right, if I get enough of that in my head, I remember you listen to Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill, one of the greatest artists ever, and she's singing about Zion. And if you were a female, now the joy of my love or my heart is in Zion. And oh my gosh, so if you're pregnant at that time, if you're going through some situation with your man, Lauren's singing to me. She's talking to me. I can feel her words. She must know what I'm not. She don't know you, but she must know what I'm going through. And it begins to turn the mind towards fantasy, daydreaming, night dreaming, having all the dreams and the visions and the hopes and the aspirations, which are wonderful words, but so many people are so enamored and spaced out by those phrases that they don't deal with the reality that life is going to life. Life's going
Hmm.
to live. Life's going to give you some adversity, not life giving it, but you and I, through the choices we make or fail to make, are going to stimulate or trigger or bring about certain realities in our lives, and they won't
Yes.
all feel good.
Yes.
You know?
So, are you able to, and maybe also allow us to see it a little clearer? But when you see people, because I know you see the world differently, and that's why I love having you on the vantage point. When you see people in today's society, just anybody walking on the street, family, friends, whatever, are you able to instantly, before they even open their mouth to speak, are you able to identify the fairy tale just by looking at a person and how they present themselves?
For some people, right? If I'm walking down the
Mhm.
street and I see a man or woman with bright green, blue, purple, fuchsia, blonde, dyed red hair that's not their own, I immediately know this person has a disconnect between reality and fantasy. You
Now,
follow?
how is that a disconnect? And I'm asking this way
Well,
because
because
this
when I
is
get
what
when
people say. They want
right,
option. They want the choice to put their hair in a protective style. And I'm just speaking for everybody, right? That's my job
okay,
today. So I like protective styles, and I want to put my hair in a protective style. And I think we should be able to express ourselves in different ways. So that doesn't mean that I believe in a fairy tale. I just want options. You know what I'm saying? I just want options.
you
That's all
want
I got.
options, right? Okay, no problem. I have no problem with someone saying that. My
Mhm.
issue is that if I were to, I'm going to show you something, right?
Mhm.
If you saw this, right, and people at home, right? This is Ronald McDonald's and his gang, right? There's Grimace, there's Hamburglar, right? You
Right.
can see the screen. Okay,
Yes.
there was a time that we understood that when you saw this, that these were clowns. These
Mm,
were people dressed up for entertainment purposes to entertain children.
mm.
Yes,
Yes.
right. We know that a man does not have an actual head that's a hamburger. We know that there's a Ronald who has a white face with red lips and bright red hair, wearing a yellow and red and white suit. We know Grimace. We know the Hamburglar. We know that we knew this was not real. We saw creatures with blonde hair, red hair. Yes,
Yes.
we saw
Mhm.
creatures with blonde hair, with red hair, with green hair, and we knew this was make believe. Now, whether it's Ronald McDonald or it's Barney and friends,
Mm.
right? This is Barney and his friends, right? Or the New Zoo Review. And if in the UK, I'm sure you all had some stuff. This was the New Zoo Review. It had an owl, it had a talking frog, and a hippo, right? Sesame
Mhm.
Street, right? Yeah, Mr. Snuffleupagus. You had Bert and Ernie. Yes, yeah, Cookie Monster, right? We had the Transvent, had Count Dracula, right? We had Grimace, right? We had was it Tasmania? We had Elmo. We all of these, and this was clear to the adults that this was for children and it was fantasy.
Mm.
So when
Right.
I now and at those times in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, late 90s it picked up, but in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 50s, the 40s, etc., the 60s, black women did not walk around, black men did not walk around with red hair and green eyes and purples and pinks and blues and it just wasn't us. It was considered punk. The punk rockers
Mm.
of the 60s wearing multicolored hair. And this was the punk rockers. So we understood when you saw somebody that had this weird looking hair, different colors, and
Can you
different,
reshare, please? Sorry.
right? Okay.
Hmm.
Wearing different color hair, and we understood. Can you see it now?
Yes. Hmm.
Right? We
Yes.
understood when you saw this style was called punk. Yes,
Yes. Hmm.
very clear. We knew what it was. Was no ifs, was no ands, was no buts. Well, something happened.
Mm.
Something
Okay.
changed when what was clown outfits, fake eyelashes was only wore by Mr. Snuffleupagus,
Oh.
right? The big woolly mammoth from Sesame Street. And Miss Piggy, she wore it, and the Dracula, right? These
Mm.
these were people.
Yes.
The count, he wore big long eyebrows
Mm.
or eyelashes, I should say, and that was understood. And so what happened? A generation of people watched New Zoo Review, Mr. Snuffleupagus from the Sesame Street, from Barney
Mm.
the Purple Dinosaur to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to what's the other one? Voltron and Yellow Form Blazings and He-Man and She-Ra, and all of that stuff was being pumped into the minds of a generation of men and women, or generations of men and women, and it triggered in the mind because I remember being a child, and when the five lions came together and it made the sword, and you'd be sitting there like, yeah, you could feel, and you, because it was always when the bad guy was there and they were going, yes, and you start to keep looking as to that as the hero. Hero worship is extremely important for children. Children must have a hero. They must have a mother, a father, a grandparent. Some people in that family have to play the role of hero. Unfortunately, when people get mad at each other, they destroy the hero. But heroes, the most important thing to the psyche is to have a hero. But if that hero gets teared down or never introduced to the child, then the child's hero becomes the television. And the television world is fantastic, right? It's amazing, but it does not deal with reality. It causes this child or these people to end up with standards, with life standards or life goals. Psychologically, there's a negative impact because you're looking for a perfect life, right? When you
Mm.
see children, and we all
Mm.
have children, and the child is watching TV, and you say, cut off the TV. Oh, oh, they're playing video games because
The
you've
world's
just you're
over.
trying to
Hmm.
yeah, because yes, it is over because you're
Hmm.
unplugging them from the world that their mind has been drawn to.
Right.
And what they don't tell you, this is part of one of the things they talk about with binge watching. Binge watching has the effect on of shutting down the minds of people, because what binge watching does, and how Netflix and these guys understand the metrics, is that binge watching makes you identify with the character. So if
Yes.
I'm watching The Blacklist, once I identify with Red, I'm going to keep watching 300
Hmm.
episodes to figure out what's going to happen to Red.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I'm going to be trapped in this world where I'm now looking at, it happens to black people and black men and black women. You go watch the Godfather movie, and everybody walks around for the next 2 weeks giving an offer you can't refuse, right?
Hmm.
Right?
Right.
And it ends up saying it that way. And so people, don't realize it creates unrealistic standards of
Mm-hmm.
beauty, of success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look, if a young girl, first of all, she ends up looking for someone to come and save her, and the only person that she's going to respect to save her is a prince. So
Mm-hmm.
there's in the black community, you'll have it happens in the white community, but I'm not concerned with them in the same way, right? But in the black community, you'll have black women say, "Oh no, I could be a lady once I get the right man." See, when the right
Mm-hmm.
man comes along, for him, I'll be a lady. Prince Charming. When Prince Charming comes along, then I'll be a lady. Then I'll be
Right.
soft. Then I'll be
Right.
compassionate. Then I'll be loved. That's the programming of waiting for
Mm-hmm.
Prince Charming,
Mm-hmm.
and it leads to all types of problems in our lives that no one is good enough, not even myself. So yes, if I'm walking down the street, I'm looking at people and I'm going, okay, this because again in 1980, if I started walking around in the street with bright red hair, people knew something's not right.
Something's up. Right.
If I had
Mm-hmm.
purple hair, right,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
different color hair, I'll bring it up on the screen. We would say something's not quite right. Just because society, for the sake of capitalism, now says, no, it's okay, it's your choice. But if you saw in 1980, in 1970, before this new agenda fully, when we was talking about black power, black people had their hair what? Afro, natural. Now, the curls are beautiful here, but the unnatural color scheme does not lend that this person is right in the head.
Mm.
You follow? When you do what they call this one two tone, what they call this
Yeah.
highlight,
Yeah.
highlight,
I like. Yeah.
right? Highlight. When you highlight two different, something's wrong.
See,
Something's not right.
it's such a
I, I
rabbit
know
hole
because
to go down
no,
because
no, it's not a rabbit
it,
hole. Actually, no, it's not a rabbit hole. It's just reality. It's a any psychiatrist or psychologist would sit the person down and say, "Yeah, that's true. That's not normal. It's not normal for a clown because there's people who are professional clowns, but guess
mm,
what? They don't wear when they're not working.
they don't wear the clown outfit. They don't wear the
And the
costume.
question is why? Because they want to be taken serious. The men who have dressed as Ronald McDonald's, every year the Salvation Army has the Santa Claus that be in front of the buildings ringing the bell. You know what those
Yes,
people do? The people that work at Disney World, at Walt Disney, who dress up as Snow White and Cinderella and the different Disney characters. You know the first thing they do when they get off of work?
they
They
take off
take
the.
off the
Mhm.
costume. So then the question
Mhm.
has to be, and I'm not attacking anybody, I'm
Right.
attacking ignorance, right? I'm attacking ignorance. So if you identify as ignorant, people identify as gay and all that, so you might identify as ignorant.
Mhm.
So I would seem like I'm attacking you. I didn't say the person is not beautiful. I'm saying I don't know what the person really looks like because this is a
Mm.
sign that something's not right
Well, okay.
psychologically. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to interject just for a second, right? Because I need this to be clear and being, relatable, right? The reason I said it's a rabbit hole is because once you decide to try a new look, right? You enter a world where now you opened up a door where you might say, for me, I was oh, okay. This one time, I never grew up wearing a bunch of weaves and stuff like that. I wasn't even allowed at some point to wear all of that hair, right? And I think at whatever point of watching TV
Okay.
shows and
Mhm.
whatever helps to program, it's just one time. It's a birthday thing. You make it a special occasion thing, and once you open that door, it
Yeah.
makes or allows you to now say, "Oh, I'm gonna get creative. I want to try this. I want to try that. I want to try this." And you mentioned the clown outfit, but that was literally for a performance where these looks are a example of I know where you can take us there, but these looks seem to be of people that are serious people, that are valued people, that are successful people. So if you're watching a show and these women are traveling the world, and you're like, I want to travel the world. These women are doing big things. They're opening up different businesses, and that's your goals. Then it doesn't seem like it's just a person putting on an act initially being in that program. It seems like a very serious educate well, I don't want to say educated or valued person, right? To
Right. Who's
most
losing
people's
their edges?
perception.
Right. Who's losing their edges? I'm just
Yeah.
saying, because everybody who's putting on this new look, the edges look like mine, right? They're gone,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And just, but
It's true. It's very true. That's very true.
I want. This is from the Cleveland
Hmm.
Clinic, one of the premier psychological or psychiatric hospitals in America, and they say dyeing your hair isn't a psychological disorder on its own, but it can be a form of self expression. That's what people say, and
Hmm.
can sometimes be linked to mental health conditions like body dysmorphic disorder. Not the
Yes.
BD, not the BBLs. That's a different one. That's the actual act. This is called a BDD. So the people with the BDLs and all the fake this and fake that, or obsessive compulsive disorder. Because one of the things, I have sisters, and I got older sisters, I got younger sisters. And one of the things I remember watching my sisters do, and even my daughters who had natural hair growing up and everything, but y'all be in the mirror. If a teenage girl walks past a reflection in a store glass, and you look, you check yourself, right? Because you're very conscious of what you look like, and some teenage boys go through it for that matter.
Hmm.
But let's continue and see, because we're talking a diagnosis.
Right.
If the behavior is compulsive, if you're going to the beauty salon every week, every other week, every 3 weeks, once a month, and sitting there for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours,
Mm.
if you got to get up every morning and you need what do you call when you got to get dressed in the morning? You need an extra hour and a half. There's some people that need an hour and a half just to do their
Mm.
face. They got
Mm.
to get up and take the little what they call
The
spray gun,
airbrush.
the
Hmm.
airbrush, and they got to put this color thing in.
Mm.
They got to take the thing and put it all in here. Then they got to take the other thing and put it down here. Then they got to take this thing, go around the outside. Then they got to take the little white thing and they put it here. And they got to go under here. And the neck be chocolate and the face is like powdered donut, but that's a different discussion. And you got to do all that. Then you got to, when you finish putting all this extra compulsively every morning, I've got to, not me, that person has to spend an hour to an hour and a half putting on their face. That's actors that do that. And then after they do all of that, they got to put in, some people put in caps for the teeth to look straight. Some people then have to take the eyelashes with the big scissor thing. They got the eyelash thing. They got to squeeze it on and make sure the glue. Then some people put the glue thing and they go around the edges and they got to put a special wig. Or some people got to put a little stocking cap on and put it. And there's men doing this too. Let me just be clear. And I'm not saying this as a joke. That's compulsive. Compulsive means you do it every single day. You're doing something every single day that actors do when they're on set, that people who are clowns do for their job. You're doing it just to be able to walk out the door and feel confident. So without all this makeup, imagine if the man who played Joker, right? Jim Carrey was one of the Jokers in one of the Batman movies. Imagine if Jim Carrey kept having to walk around every day dressed like the Joker. Would we diagnose that something's wrong with him? He hasn't been able to come out of that character. The character got him, because most people don't know when actors are on the set for months and months and months playing a role. When they're finished, they got to go away for a couple of weeks to get that character out their system. If not, they'll start to develop traits of that character into their personal life, and they may not want it, especially if they play the serial killer, right? But this is what's happening, and people don't want to hear that. Let's go even further. Again, this is from the Cleveland Clinic So I don't want
Yes.
nobody coming for me. They can actually, well, come for me. I don't mind, right? But if you go online and you go to their
Don't
website,
do that.
they go on and say, and if the behavior is compulsive, causes distress. Oh my God, I ran out of eye glue. There's people that will not go out because they ran out of airbrush paint. They won't go out. They won't leave the house because they ran out of lipstick. They won't do X, Y, and Z because I can't be seen. Like there's men who get up in the morning and the wife is already, there's women who put makeup on to go to bed and then get up an hour before him because she doesn't want him to see what she really looks like.
Mm, mm,
Now, that's distress. That interferes with daily life. I remember growing up, there
yes.
was time where you say when you have your hair just did with the extensions and the weaves, and again, it's not just women. This is men are doing this now. Don't touch me. Okay, no, don't touch my hair. I can't wash my hair for 2 months. Two
Mm,
months.
mm,
You can't
mm,
wash your hair for 2, 3 months because if it gets wet, it's gonna mess up the style. So you walk around and everybody patting their head because it itch like hell. Let's have a real you're doing this all day.
mm.
Or what's the matter? Oh, my hair's itching. Then scratch it. No, because if I scratch it, it's gonna flake. Then wash it.
Stop, that's contagious. Yeah, no, I'm playing. Yes, yes.
Again, I'm not attacking because again, this is
Mhm.
men and women. So some people are gonna try to switch the subject now and make it easy to. I'm talking about a disorder. However, for
Yes.
many, dyeing hair is a normal and healthy way to enhance the mood and boost confidence and express identity. What identity are you expressing when you were born with woolly hair, black, brown, nice features, beautiful, thick, and you got to change it to try to look like something that no baby comes out the womb feeling I'm not good enough. No baby, male or female, comes out of the womb. No 1 year old is worried about what people feel about their face.
Mm,
It only
it's so
happens
true.
when adults start to cast into that child's mind. Oh, look, come on over here with your
Mm,
little nappy self. Look at your hair, girl. You can comb your hair. You got to take care. We're gonna have to do something about this hair. This hair. That's where the problem comes in. Those little say
mm,
we're gonna have to do something about this hair. Words that
right.
a child will never forget.
Mhm,
Come over
mhm,
here with your
mhm.
little nappy self. Oh, look at you, girl.
Right.
She's so fine. She got good hair. Bibi Shahrazad Ali talked about this in the Black Man's Guide to Understanding
Yes.
the Black Woman and the Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. There's a psychosis. Hmm? And this is a problem. Now, of course, the business people don't mind saying, no, it's just a form of expression. It's expression. And so now we got men who are doing it. And then why are they just expressing themselves? Then women say, where's all the good black men going? They're expressing themselves. You don't want them. You don't want the guy with the purple, pink, blue hair who's expressing himself because you know something's wrong. So why is it if a man puts all this crazy in his hair, everybody immediately recognizes something's wrong? If I came on here next week and I was wearing a blonde wig, cut into a little bob cut, a little short, short over here, and then back here a little long, and or I went and got me some dreads. If I came next week and they got the good
Mm.
dreads now, you know what I'm saying? And it's only because I want to identify with my
They
roster roots.
do.
Right. I
Yes.
want to, I want to, I want to identify with my roster roots. I mean, I'm not roster, but I've always identified as roster because I like reggae music, and it makes me feel more me because I be in the car, and I just move my head and like Bob Marley. So I'm gonna go this week and get me some fake dreads, and I'm gonna come up here next week with my dreads on, and every time I'm talking, I'll just keep doing this. No one who's watching or listening in is gonna look at that and say he's normal today. They're gonna say, "What happened to Rev Dr. AJ Varmah? What
Mhm.
happened to Basesh Hardo Hotep Tar?" Say, "What do you mean? What happened? I'm still me. Yeah, but you're wearing fake hair. That doesn't mean anything. Y'all know I'm a proud African. I'm a proud black man. I'm proud of who I am. I'm just wearing dreads because I'm into my roster phase." None of you are going to say that. So why are we going to say it for everybody else? Why can't the truth be the truth? And then we can do something about it. Because
Yes.
if I hate myself so much, or I'm so programmed by the society, the dominant society, to take the risk of burning. There's people walking around with chemical burns.
Mm.
I'm not saying this is a person who didn't try it. When I was young, I put in an S curl. I went and got the S curl box and had my mom work with me, and we put it in and combed it through. And mine, it didn't take. I must have my hair was just different. You know, I had woolly hair, and so it didn't take and turned my stuff into a process. Now I was walking around looking like Blackula. My boys ate me up. The girls ate me up in school. I cut it the very next day and was like, that's not for me. But I understand it wasn't that I hated being a black boy, it's that I wanted good hair. Because someone taught me about this thing called good hair. Hmm? That my hair wasn't good. Not, oh, hey, here's some olive oil, here's some batana oil, here's some such and such oil. Take that, put it in your hair, comb it. No, I was just being everywhere I looked. And when I turned on the TV, there was S curl, there was Jerry curl, there was Wave Nouveau, there all this stuff, and everybody had it. So I wasn't hating myself. I just wanted to find myself. I was just wanting to make myself feel more confident. And then I had a process. Did I have confidence when all the kids in St. Raymond's in the schoolyard was laughing at me? My confidence
Mm.
was crushed. So I realized that hair was not going to be the thing that's going to give me confidence.
Mm.
You understand?
Okay.
If my only confidence and sense of self is coming from putting on fake make, I'm not saying don't put no makeup on. I'm saying, but when the makeup goes over the top as a female,
Mm.
if men
Mm.
shouldn't never wear makeup, right? Unless you're an
Mhm.
actor, right? But when makeup goes over the top, when you leave work with hair that's 4 inches and you come the next day with hair that's 19 inches, that's a little bit too much. It's too much. You just went too far. Why? The mind. Please go ahead. I can talk all day about this subject.
Yes. No, that's perfect. And I love the ways the conversation is going. Now before we move into this next question, I want to make it also clear, besides hair, right? Especially for men, because it was hard for me to see this, and you may know this just by our conversations and me questioning you on this topic. You mentioned about sports, right? And you said that that in itself is a fantasy for men as well, right?
Yeah.
Men are not the only people who watch sports. I love sports, but I'm gonna go into that just a little bit more because it seems like, especially for people who are going to hear this or hear the pre-talk video that I did, like, wait, now that's a stretch. That now you doing too much. You're taking this a little bit too far. You talking about football, basketball. You talking about my sports is fantasy. What does that have to do with the fairy tale? Can you speak to that for a second, please?
Well, there's a phrase in sports, right? There's a phrase that fixed, right? There's a phrase in sports called the fix is in, where the gambling houses, the owners don't take chances with the outcome in a $1 billion industry that is football, European or African football, I should say, and American football. In a $1 billion industry that is baseball, in a $1 billion industry that is soccer, that is basketball, that is boxing, that is, and we can just keep saying that is, right? In the music world, $1 billion industry, they decide who's going to be. These decisions are already made. They know who the next superstar female is going to be. They already know who she is, or those two or three of them that's going to be let in. They already know who the next male rapper is going to be, the next year's artist of the whatever. It's already understood. It's controlled. You don't become $1 billion industries leaving things to chance. You don't
Mm.
become Fortune 500 companies leaving things to chance. The Lakers, the Yankees, the Knicks, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Steelers, the boxing. Years ago, I remember as a young man, a little kid, probably 8, 9 years old, watching Marvin Hagler fight Sugar Ray Leonard. And
Mm.
fight on in front of us, he was beating the bejesus out of Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, he was beating him like he stole something.
Mhm.
And at the end of the fight, the judges gave the fight to Sugar Ray. And everybody was cussing. Hagler was like, I'm done with boxing. And he
Yes.
never fought again,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Now, that wasn't an outliner. That was a normal situation that has happened. The phrase, the house always wins. They don't take chances with billions of dollars. There's a
Right.
fix. So they know, okay, these are the teams that are most likely to make it to the playoffs. So these are the markets that we're going to spend the most money on commercials and advertise. The Major League Baseball does a thing called team profit sharing. The basketball, the ownership, they do what's called profit sharing. They're not making it where even the losing teams, you can't have it that the losing team's owner loses money because then he's not going to want to keep funding a team. So if you look at a football in England and you see there's X amount of football teams that never really get anything done. They're pretty much just there, but they play and they have a little small fan base or a good fan base. They sell some merchandise, but they never can seem to win the Premier League or whatever the different football leagues there are. Same thing in baseball. You got teams in baseball in America that have not made a championship ever. You follow certain teams. Then you got other teams that, oh man, they're a dynasty. The Yankees are always in it. The Red Sox, the such and such, the LA Dodgers. How is that possible? These men, these women that are playing are professionals. They're not scrubs. So for someone to keep winning is not because they're just that good, it's that there is a control. Am I saying the players are in on it? Yeah. Pete Rose in baseball, he was banned from baseball for betting on his own game. But was he the first? It had happened with the Boston Red Sox betting on, and these guys through the World Series. This has happened in many sports. You think somebody, if I'm a player on a team and I'm one of the lower players and I'm only making X, Y, Z, and somebody comes to me and offers me 10 times that amount because they're going to win 100 times that amount, I'm not going to take it and miss an open goal? Of course. You've seen players get on the foul line and miss an open foul shot. Guys who've been shooting foul shots forever. Oh no, because he was nervous. No, this is a part, it's a fantasy. In fact, it's such a fantasy that they now created what's called Fantasy League. And if I
Yeah.
remember when fantasy
Fantasy
leagues,
football. Yeah.
first fantasy football,
Mhm.
and basketball and baseball and soccer, when they first
Mhm.
started, we were laughing at it. I'm like, huh? What do you rate?
Mhm.
So and people would say, yeah, you got to put together your team. And the way you put your team
Yes.
together,
Yes.
you go so you can pick a running back from that team and a receiver from that team, and you put these guys from different teams, and then every week you got to see if this guy how many yards he got, and that person
Mhm.
how many intercept, and then that tells you how. And I'm like, and
Right.
I watch guys in college sit there for hours, and I'm like, I can't do
Yeah.
that. That's not
Yeah.
real.
Mm.
That's not real.
But the word fantasy is there, but you don't hear it that way, right?
Of
So
course not. Well, in
I used
fantasy league,
to I used to bet on sports, but I never did the fantasy because that was just too much for me. I used to just do the games. But when you revealed that to me, like, okay, no, it says it in the name itself,
they're
fantasy.
telling you.
And I'm like, but you don't hear it.
Well, because someone, again, it's the programming. When we're
Mm,
watching ESPN's all sports, 24-hour sports, 24 Fox Sports, ESPN2, ESPNU, you can turn
mm.
on 365 days a year, every hour of the day, and watch sports. And now that gambling became legal for sports,
Oh
oh my
yeah, it's
goodness,
over now. It's
all
over.
podcast sponsored by
Mhm.
Just Bet. We can do this bet, and you can do the first £100. It's free, $100 free. You can bet. You can gambling. Why? Because the economy's tanked globally, and when that
Mhm.
happens, melanated people are always the ones get drawn into betting because we're the least hired. We have the least opportunities for quote unquote jobs. Unemployment is high, so the fantasy of I can strike it rich. I've played a
Mm.
lot. my life. I've done scratch off in my life, believing I was going to win, and you'd be like, "Oh, it's $1 billion, $100 million, 100,000, whatever the amount," and you thinking, "Boy, if I win, and then everything's going to be better, and I'm gonna show the world, I'm gonna help
Mm-hmm.
this."
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
all had this fantasy, and you start thinking about the kind of car you're gonna get, and the house you're gonna get for your mama and them, and your dad, and you're gonna do this with your children, and you start having these beautiful, and the fantasy feels so real from
Yeah.
leading up to the big drawing. And then once the
Mm.
big drawing happens, people think you're going to crash. No, the body wants to feel like it's a high. You want to feel, or if you're lucky, you play a scratch off. I remember doing a scratch off in Albany, Georgia. I'm like, oh, I won $500. Oh, I went straight in and said, "All right, give me $450 in cash and give me $50 in scratch
Mm.
offs." Because I just knew if I just won five,
Mm-hmm.
spend
Yeah.
this 50, I'm gonna guarantee to win 1,000.
All right. If I
Didn't
get
win a
the
damn
whole
thing.
roll, one
Yeah,
on
oh, if
that
I could,
roll is going to be
yeah,
a winner.
something
One.
on that.
You
I
know
didn't
what?
think the damn one I just won was the one on the roll. No,
Right.
the greediness said there's another
Mm.
one there, and that's the hook. That's the
Mm-hmm.
fantasy. And then you end up spending more money, more money, more money into illusion. Now, college sports, what's happening in college sports? Name, image, and likeness, NIL deals. So now these kids are coming in into college level and they're like, "Pay me. I'm going to make some money." And I'm not mad at them. But now it makes everybody feel what? I can do it also. I don't got to get to the pros anymore. I just got to get to university and be good enough for the local car dealer, the local restaurant chain, the local to pay me. Nothing wrong with it for those people that are actually making money. But when you and I are on the outside, if you think these guys are getting money just for their name, image, and likeness, and ain't nobody saying, "Well, if I can give you money for your name, image, and likeness, I might be able to give you a few dollars to make sure you drop that football, to make sure that you keep the point spread within 7 points, to make," and this has happened many times, but
Mm-hmm.
again,
Yes.
like the person with the scratch off, no, man, you telling me that those people who watch American football, we watch in the football game with the Seahawks some years ago playing against the New England Patriots. Seahawks are up. They got first down and goal with X amount of minute, about a minute, less than a minute on the clock. They got a running back who's the best
Mm-hmm.
running back in the league. Beast mode. He running. He averaging 4 yards a carry. They just need one,
Yes.
and they draw a play that they don't give him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Or was the New England market, was it decided from upstairs? And I don't mean God, Jesus. I mean upstairs in the NFL, in the commissioner's office. It was. A matter of fact, Shaquille O'Neal is talking about it now. He's saying there was a year he was about to win the scoring title and be the MVP, but
Mm-hmm.
David Stern wanted David Robinson from San Antonio to win it because they were the market that they wanted to build up to bolster
Mm-hmm.
the Texas market. And
Mm-hmm.
so the top players from the team that was playing against Robinson were told, "You're not going to be playing." Dominique Wilson talks this story. Said, "We were
Mm-hmm.
told we're not playing the entire second half because the commissioner wants Robinson to win the scoring title." So is Dominique Wilson, the perennial All-Star Hall of Fame, is he lying? Shaquille
Mm-hmm.
O'Neal, is he lying? Or is this the business that they're in? You're dealing with leagues that have
Yes.
to ensure that all of the teams make money to keep everybody invested into the league, and that's called profit sharing. So the owners don't care who won the champion. Now we, the
Mm-hmm.
fan base, oh my God, Tottenham is playing Man U, and we,
Yeah.
oh, we singing. I'm watching the Yankees play the Boston Red Sox. Ooh, Pittsburgh Steelers versus the New England Patriots, and we get hyped up and we put on face
Mm-hmm.
paint and fake hair and go to the game and dress as Raiders, right? But anyway, right? We do all of these things. That
Mm.
is the fantasy.
And
As a
that's a
little
hard pill to
boy,
swallow.
mm,
That's a hard pill to swallow, right? I must say, because it was even hard for me to, I'm like, no, wait a minute, no, what you trying to say? So it is a hard pill to swallow, but I hope you don't click off.
but
I hope that you stay tuned with us, because this is the part of seeing things from a different perspective, a different vantage point. I just want to say to our viewers listening, it may sound far-fetched, but it's almost like that kid that you mentioned earlier about such the kid that's on the video game, and if you take it or if you tell them to turn off the show, they're going crazy. But it's like we don't want this irreality taken from us. We don't want
But every
to live in reality.
Sister Zondi, I would say this.
Mm,
What I'm saying is not far fetched. Everyone who's hearing it knows it's not, because you've
hmm.
all been watching a game and seen a
Yes.
play that you say, "Come on, how he
Yep.
dropped that?
Yes.
Come
Like that
on,
don't even
how
make
he
sense.
that don't
Why
make
would you
how
even
he
do
let them
that?
go
What?
right."
Yeah.
But so
Hmm.
that's your higher mind seeing through the BS.
And you're not registering
But
it. You're not.
you're not registering it with what they say. If it walk like a duck, it quack like a duck. It's a duck, right? If
Yes. Yes.
you see that this isn't, it happens in relationships. We miss what I
Mm.
call it, the flags, some kind of red
Red
flag, right?
flags. Yeah, they
So
red.
you see, and there's a word for that. It's called cognitive dissonance.
Mm.
I see reality. I always tell people, no, no, don't tell me that people don't see it. I see reality, but
Hmm.
because it's not what I want it to be, I'm going to reject what I see and create an alternative world, an alternative definition, an alternative reality.
On that note, right? Because I'm looking at time and I'm so mad because it was so much more that
No, no,
we
let's
really
keep
need to
going, keep
cover.
going, keep going, keep
Um,
going.
is relationships.
I'll
You just
just push it
mentioned.
back 15 minutes, so we'll go till 15 after. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. You mentioned relationships, and the reason for this, understanding how the fairy tale plays into women and men alike, right? Both genders. And now we are the same people, both living in some type of fantasy, living in some type of illusion or fairy tale. Now we have to date each other. Now we have to create families with each other. Now we have to love each other. So how does this now affect? And I'm gonna go into Bibi Shahrazad Ali in a moment. But how does this now affect the Black family in our relationship? And when I say relationship, I mean relating to each other. Because if you're not you and I'm not me, then what's going on?
Baba
Does
Neely
that make
Fuller.
sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
There's one of the great atonist Babas we call Baba Neely Fuller. In his book, the Counter Racist Code, the Compensatory Counter Racist Code, he talks about stop saying that people are man and woman and start seeing people as boy and girl, right? Because we have to grow up. Unfortunately, for melanated people, because of our false indoctrination, misteachings, misgivings, miseducation, just a lot of misses. Because of it, we find ourselves in this condition. So here I am as a man, here she is, or you are, they are as a woman, and we're coming together, but we're carrying childhood expectations, childhood fantasies. What's the word? Emotionally underdeveloped.
Emotional
Em-
immaturity. Hmm.
but I want to say it this way: emotionally,
Okay.
yes, it is emotional
Undeveloped.
immaturity, but I'm going to
Hmm.
say it a little different.
Okay.
Emotionally underdeveloped. You
Mm.
know, when you're young and you want to seem like you got muscles as a boy, you go find a little tank top shirts and you get the one that's a little size small. You can always tell
Hmm.
a young boy 13 he's trying to lift a
Hmm.
little weights and you
Trying.
walking around the house holding his shoulders. You're like, look at you,
Get your
little
chest
arms,
out.
right? And it happens with girls, right? I remember my sister, and she probably killed me for this. I ain't gonna say which one, right? But she used to take a bunch of tissue and shove it in the in the bra underneath to show as if she was developed before it was time, right? Uh, this emotional underdevelopment, and so when we're emotionally underdeveloped, it puts two people that are really kids. And if you ever watch kids play house, it's a real crazy dynamic, right? Somebody's like, I'm the dad, I'm the mommy, and you're the dad, and you're gonna do, and you're gonna this, and go pick the baby and do that. And when you see that, you go, this is exactly what she's gonna play out later. And if he allows that, this is exactly what he's gonna play out later. you're going to become this thing because you keep playing until some adult goes, wait a minute, let me play with y'all. No, in real life, sweetie, you can't tell him what to do. You can ask him, and he has a right to disagree. Because I've seen little girls play with boys and get mad. He's
Mm.
not doing what I said. I've
Yes, what
seen
I
little
want him to
boys get
do.
mad.
Hmm.
She not doing what I say. I've watched two boys, two sons play together, and one get mad at the other one because he's not doing what I want him to do. If we don't see that as parents and shift it, that boy or girl is now going to go through life with that way of looking at it. Go ahead.
And shifting it, and then I want you to, if you can, please continue. I just want to be clear for parents because, now being really mindful of it, you're like, exactly how do I do this? So I know BB Shahara Ali spoke about not playing house and not playing family and not having the doll babies. And I don't want to misquote her, right? Now, if we say no, you're not supposed to play house, which I've caught myself doing, like you don't pretend it's no it's a husband, it's a wife. Now you're introducing the thought of play it with them and introduce the correct way to
Yeah.
communicate and treat the
The
man instead
husband,
of just taking it all together.
instead of playing you're the husband, you're the wife,
Hmm.
you're the sister, you're the brother. That's a natural dynamic. You're
Mm,
my brother. See, we have a ritual, one of our Atonis or Nazarite rites, the ritual of unity. And in that ritual, the boys and girls of that age, anywhere from age 5 to age, no, age is age 7 to age 11, those boys and girls that go through each year together, the young men and the young women will say, I am your advisor to the boys. And the boys will say, and I will be your shield. You see? So it allows the boy to develop to be a shield of defense that is needed, and the girl to be an advisor that is needed. We used to, in our cultures, in our tribes, in our families, in our spirituality, in our religious identities, in our Christianity, in our original Christianity, in our original Islam, in our original Judaism, we as Africans, we as Caribbeans, indigenous peoples of North and South America, we had rituals and sacraments and rites and precepts that developed us along the way. So today, however, we have just following what the television says and what the domineering society says. And if you don't play by those rules, then they say you are anti the establishment or whatever the words that people throw around. When a young girl is playing, the reality is just leaving them by themselves to play. We're playing house, you're the mommy, you're the daddy. No, that's going to teach this girl to start having sex too early. It's going to teach this boy to want to have sex too early. No, but that's your sister. You don't have to be related. You're going to play sister and brother. Now you got rules.
yes, I
Now
love that.
you follow,
Yes.
and now he can learn to cook. She can
Hmm.
learn to, and they can sister brother. That should be the first relationship the boy and
Right.
girl develop. Sister brother, but we bypass sister brother. You are a child first, a child. You go from being daughter or son to becoming sister and brother to becoming in your adult year mother and father, or excuse me, husband and wife, and then you
Hmm.
become mother and father. Mother and father is
Hmm.
the last stage.
Hmm.
In of
Hmm.
course, grandmother, same thing, right? But mother and father is the final stage. You are daughter
Hmm.
first, sister second, wife third, then mother. But if I'm playing the way
Yes.
they designed it, so she wasn't saying don't play at all. She was saying the way that they have designed it. If we play and indoctrinate that into these boys and girls at a young age, then the false expectations.
Right.
See,
Right.
if
And I
I'm
and
your
I don't want to
shield, I have
misquote
no
her. I don't want to say that
right,
because I don't believe she said it that way. And I think she
right.
mentioned that
She
boys
said,
should
beware
play with dolls to develop emotional knowing
connection.
how to connection and how to father. So
Right. So they're not
I
beating
hate
up little
misquoting people.
babies.
I just want to throw
Right.
that in there.
She
Yes.
what she was saying is one of the things that Bibi Shahrazad Ali is on. She said, she feels this is where she stands, that some of these boys that out here beating up, watching somebody's child and they kill the child because they don't know that a child's
Mhm.
going to cry, and the
Yes.
noise irritates them to where they end up killing a baby. So she's saying, so
Mm.
some of these children need to have a development of having to be right, but you can tell that those are children who may not have had to be the older sibling. They may not have had to show compassion. See, because if you're an older sibling, if you're three and you have a newborn brother or sister, mom's gonna say, "Go get your brother or sister's pamper. Go do such and such. Help them get up on the thing. Hey, don't let them fall down." So it develops for that young boy or girl this nurturing side that is necessary. It's necessary, but if we're not careful, the way the
Mm.
dominant or domineering society works, it focuses on corruption and introducing sex.
Right.
Introducing sex, introducing, because I ain't gonna look at the screen because everybody gonna think I'm talking to them. I'm not gonna look. I'm gonna cover the camera, right? But people in our youthful ignorance, people were playing, spin the bottle. We're gonna go in
Mm-hmm.
the closet and we're gonna kiss and feel and touchy. I ain't admitting if I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't done anybody because I'm sure people's daddies might be watching one day, come looking for me, right, with a cane. But we were playing games that were way ahead of our conscious,
Traditional
our
truth and
awareness,
dare.
our yeah,
Mm-hmm.
old truth and dare. Oh, that was my favorite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, these kind of games were not good games. Though we thought we were winning, and I'm laughing to keep from crying, though we thought we were winning, how much damage was being done as to how
Right.
we were going to look at life, how
Mm.
we were going to understand life, how we were going as a young man, as a young teenager. I'm looking at older women in their 30s. Something was wrong. And having a relationship with the 33 or 36-year-old, I'm 15. And as a guy, I thought I was winning,
Mm. Yeah.
right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
I did,
But
right?
wouldn't
But yeah, well, right. But what was being done to the psyche?
right. Right.
You
Absolutely.
follow? How was it going to affect how I was going to look at females and how females and this that was good. It's going to have a serious effect on the psyche that
Right.
I had to learn and be taught and be or reevaluated to see and go, okay, here's what the reality of these situations were. You wasn't winning. You wasn't
Right.
losing, but you wasn't
But
winning.
you wasn't winning. Mm-hmm.
You was being put in and I'm saying it this way, so I don't want to trigger anyone who might be listening. I don't want to trigger it. So if I use it in a kind of a joke way, it's not to make light of it. It's to keep those who might be listening and have experiences from being overtly triggered. You see, when we look at children, we have to control the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
We have to control how they learn from a melanated perspective, but that means we got to first be taught. You can't teach the child what you haven't learned.
Right. Right.
You got to learn it first.
Right.
You have to learn it. You have to understand what it is you're learning, and then now let's go teach the children. But
Right.
people want to just say, "Can you just tell me what to do?" And you say blues, okay, blues. But you know why you said blue? No, that's going to be a problem later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I pray
Now,
what we're saying is clear.
yes, very clear. Now I need to also ask this question, Basesh, if you don't mind. I'm gonna go back to a conversation we had and correct me in how I or how I put this together. I'm doing my best. And we spoke about having expectations for the opposite gender, right? Women's expectations for men, men expectation for women, as it pertains to melanated people specifically. And one of the things you mentioned is that, we as women, Black women, we're not really looking for a Black man. Like we don't really genuinely love the Black man. We're looking for a white man. And so in this fairy tale that we're speaking about, because that character is shaped by the European concept and European fairy tale character, then what exactly does that mean? How did we get here? What does that mean
Well,
specifically?
again, it's the programming, right? If
Hmm.
I, as a black man, get with a black girl who has blue contact lenses and
Hmm.
long blonde hair, I am telling her that she's a substitute for the original.
Hmm.
She is a substitute for what I really want. She's the closest I can get to what I really want. I want a person with blue eyes and blonde hair. And now, if she has blue eyes, contact, and blonde hair, fake or dyed,
Hmm.
and airbrushes to be lighter, 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 and then and I accept her, because people say you got to accept me as I am. Well, you ain't accepted you as you are, so I cannot. But anyway, when that happens, I'm saying messaging. The messaging, if I see a couple walking down the street, the messaging is that man really wants the original and is instead settling, whether inability to access the original, is settling for a facsimile. In the same way I've just said that, because when black women see a black man with a white woman, ooh, they be mad. And I remember years ago, I was with a young lady. She was taking me in the United Kingdom. She was taking me to the British Museum, British Library, to show me where everything was. And she was of mixed heritage. She was biracial. I didn't want to say the wrong word, right? She was biracial. May she rest in peace, because she's transitioned. But she was biracial. So, but if you looked at her, depending on the angle, she could look white. And if you looked from another angle, she could look black. And we're on the train in London, and there was no any kind of relationship interest between us. She had a day off, and I said, I need somebody to take me to the museum. I want to see where it is. My first time, blah, 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 blah. And so we're on the train, and there's darker women on the train, Nubian sisters, and they're all looking at me. And I'm, coming from America. I'm like, how you doing, sister? And they're looking at me like I just, I just passed wind or something on the train. And I'm wondering at first, like, what's good? Then I realized, oh, they think she's white and I'm with her. Neither were true, but it is what it is. I'm saying that to say, if we can understand that, now let's flip it to your question. When a woman, a black woman, who's not conscious of self, because the black man who's doing that, he has lack of knowledge of self. He's not conscious of who he is. We're not being conscious of who we are, where we come from, what that means, what we represent. It would be like a Jewish person walking with a person who's a Nazi, and saying, this is my new lover, right? It'd be kind of a weird experience. When we see that, that woman is actually looking, right? That woman is looking for a fairy tale. She's looking for a white man in black skin, the same way I would be looking for a white woman in black skin who's transitioning into black skin, right? Because if a man is transitioning from a man into a woman, they have this process called transitioning, and they're taking hormone replacement therapy or suppression to suppress this, and they're removing the testes and removing the such and such, and women who are transitioning into men are doing these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm watching a black woman transition.
Mm. Okay.
I'm watching a black man. It can't be transitioning for the LGBTQ community, but when it comes to
Right.
everybody else, it's just
It's
makeup.
not
No,
right.
it's transitioning.
Mm.
It's a form of I would have to diagnose that person, and you could ask Dr. Ford one of these days when you interview her, because she's a clinician.
Mm-hmm.
It is that there's no difference between the two,
Mm-hmm. Right.
except for the
Right.
person who's doing the person who's transitioning from a man to a woman or a woman into a man. They'll
Mm-hmm.
say, no, this is who I am. Well, guess what? The black
Mm-hmm.
man and woman who's transitioning into whiteface is going to say, this is who I
This is
am.
who I am.
I was born
Mm.
this way. I don't hate me. The same thing.
Mm.
So what I was saying to you was, there are many black women. I can't speak for every single black woman on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because depending on which countries you go to, there are black women that do love black men, but they want a black man. But that means accepting his reality and your state and your condition. And that comes with having a doctrinal sense of reality, a consciousness, a conscientiousness. It comes from reading. You got to read the ISIS paper. But if I'm just a regular black woman who hasn't read the
Mm-hmm.
ISIS paper and applied it, because people will read a lot of books, but they don't apply the information within the books.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you're going to read the ISIS papers, then apply it to your life. If I'm going to read the counter racist code, I must apply it to my life. If we're going to read the message to the black man, then we must apply it to our lives. So if we're not applying these etiquettes of nobility or whatever the parchment or books that we might even put out, if I'm not applying it to my life, then my life is going to remain the same. I can have a bookshelf with all the books that's ever been written by every black author, from wall to wall, bookshelves, 10 feet high in the air, 25 feet wide. And I could say I've read all those books. But if I'm not applying those things that I've read to my life, then I'm still where I was, with the exception being I have information, I have knowledge, but it would be like having knowledge of the Heimlich maneuver while I watch someone choke and I don't use it. Imagine you had the knowledge on how to expel a bone from a person's throat who's choking, and you sit there, you're not using it. And I know you know it. And I'm saying, yo, help him. And like, no, it's not really my problem. I'm not into that Heimlich maneuver thing. I'm not into expelling bones from a choking victim. What would people think of me? Well, it's the same thing. We in the conscious, so-called conscious community who are not using our consciousness and conscientiousness, our doctrinal awareness of whatever organization or books we've read, we're as guilty as the people who are enslaving us, because it says you are as guilty as the crime you let happen. If you and I sit back and allow things to continue to be the way that it is, we're no different than the enslavers amongst all of the different races of people who have enslaved us. So when a black woman, again, when I made the statement, and I stand by it, most black women, I would say most, if not, I won't say everyone, but most, many is a better word. The ones I've met, let me put it that way, right? Don't really want a black man in the sense of consciousness. I'm not talking about a black man in the sense of hue. I'm not talking about wanting a black woman in the sense of hue. I'm talking about a black man in the sense of consciousness, who's going to, as BB Francis Cresswell said and BB Shahrazad Ali said, hold you accountable. Tell you when you're wrong. No one wants to be told, hey, you're wrong. Because the programming, hey, which dress you think I should wear? This one or this one? That one. And she wears the one you told her. She wears the opposite one than you chose. These are the signs that that's not your woman. These are the doctrinal signs that that's not your woman. Hey, baby, which thing you like? This one or that one? And I say that one, and you go with this one. That's a sign. And if this person keeps doing it, then eventually you have to ask the question, which is, I'm that way inclined. Why do you keep? Don't even ask me. Why? Because you're telling me that this opinion doesn't matter, right? And we are the Holy Coptic Church of the Black Messiah, and that's my New Year's conversation that I'm going to be having December 31st with our members. There's some changes are coming. There's a wind blowing. We're going to be zealot. We're going to be disciplined. We're going to be a certain way. Ladies will be ladies. Men will be men. Ladies will dress a certain way every day. If they can't do it, then go on now. Men are going to do certain things. You can't wear the hard bottom shoes and the dress slacks. Go on now. You can still come to class. We'll see you, hey, hotel, shalom, all that. But we know that you're going to, because what keeps you from developing is that fairy tale. We can't be conscious and still holding on to the fairy tale. I'm conscious, but I'm still rolling up the blunt. I'm conscious, but I'm still drinking the liquor. I'm conscious, but I'm still going to the strip club. I'm just not conscious. You follow? I'm a person who's concealing reality. I'm a person who's unequally developed or is emotionally underdeveloped. If you know the truth, then it should be expressed through your behavior. So if you're a black woman, say, I love my black man. What about him is black? What? If you know you love your black man, what about him is black other than his hue? In what ways is he telling you and educating you and directing you? In what ways are you allowing yourself to be edified and directed? Are you fighting? I'm talking Francis Cresswell, Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. I'm talking, not Francis Cresswell, Shahrazad Ali. I'm talking Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. And I got to rock with her because all these talk streamers and podcasts that are talking relationships, they're all talking her, and no one will say her name. Because if you read her books, you'd be like, wait a minute, Steve Harvey's whole Act Like a Man, Think Like a Woman is based off of those two books. Anyone who's read, I read his book. I wanted to know what was the big, this was a rave, but I read it and said, but this is what Shahrazad Ali was saying. And of course he can say, I never heard of her. Yes, you have, because she was on Donahue. She was on all the shows. How you didn't hear of her? I swear to God, I never heard of her. You did. Stop. But you don't want to say her name because then that means that, and the only person was Kevin Samuels who gave her respect and was trying to bring her back out so the world could recognize her. You follow? So no, the average black woman wants a facsimile. You can't say you want a black man and can't define to me. And a lot of women will say, well, a man's supposed to this and a man's supposed to that. And I ask every woman, great, what's a woman supposed to do? And
Right.
I've yet to meet the woman that's been able to
Give you the
articulate
answer.
and define what a woman. So you know what a man's supposed to be, but you ain't a man.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna lose some friends on
Yeah,
this.
yeah. You,
I don't mind.
you're
I
making
don't
my
know what friends I
viewers,
am. No, no, no.
I'm just playing. I'm just
I'm
playing.
talking to your
No,
viewers that want reality and saying
yeah,
we gotta fix up.
yeah.
We gotta fix up.
But but I want to ask this last question. But before we get to that, what about the women who are like, no, but I genuinely, love the black man, and then I know that what I want of the black man is a black man's qualities and not a white. Like, I want a protector. I want a man who's stern, who's
All
not
I
going to
do
be
is
a pushover,
all I
who's
would
not
say
going
to
to, what
any
I'm saying. So how is that how is that me wanting a white man? Because I know that
would
question will
say
come.
to any man or
Vice
woman,
versa.
because right, I'll say to any man or
Hmm.
woman who makes that statement, what organization are you a part of?
Mm,
Are you a Moor? No. Are you a Nation of Islam? No. Are you a Holy Cookie Church? No. Are you a Rasta? No. Are you a Hebrew Israelite? No. What are you a part of? Because the old saying is you judge a bird of this feathers flock together. I think that's how I say birds of a feather flock together.
yes,
Yes?
birds of a
Okay,
feather
good.
flock together. Yes.
So what flock are you a part of?
Mm,
And if you ain't got a flock that's standing for black empowerment, that's standing for black consciousness, that's standing for religious re-evaluation for the black psyche, then you don't really know what you want. How could you know what you want if you don't know what you are yet? You got to
mhm,
first, as a man or woman, know who and what you are doctrinally, culturally.
mm.
Not, oh, I'm a proud. Everybody's a proud. It's called gay pride. They proud too, right?
Yes.
What are you first and foremost? Who are you? What are you?
Mm,
And I'm not saying this. Elijah Muhammad taught this. Marcus Garvey taught this. Amy Jacques Garvey taught this. Winnie Mandela taught this. Who else taught this? A. Philip Randolph taught this. W.B. Du Bois taught this. There were so many great teachers and orators who taught that you got to first have a sense of who you are. Then you'll know what you want. Then you'll know what kind of woman or man you want in your life. But you don't have no sense of consciousness or culture that not just, oh, I read a book, but show me by your behavior. Show me by your behavior, by your day to day. You're standing there with a wig on saying you love black men. You don't even love black women enough to be one.
mhm,
That sounds cold. You're standing
mm,
there as a man with a fake toupee on. If I'm a black man walking around with a toupee, I'm not living in
mm.
reality. Just shave it off and let it go. No, I'm still holding on. You
Right.
walking around with three braids
Mhm,
and one little braid hanging here. I'm like, yo, dude, that's not dreads. That's just dread, right? You don't even got a D at the end, right? Or an S.
right.
Again, getting them to see that. That's the problem that we're having. But people have to see it. There's no
Mm,
choice, right? Because
mm,
the rest of the world, things are happening. Laws are being implemented, being passed every day. That's putting us back, setting black people back to Jim Crow and slavery. It's back. The school to prison pipeline is real. While we trying to be Rihanna, while we trying to be Sexy Red, while we trying to be all these other people are taking back stock and control of resources and lands, and we're just sitting around trying to figure out what we want to do. Black women cannot say, I want a black man without first being a part of something that defines what her definition of blackness is. You can't just create an arbitrary, this is what blackness means. It don't work like that. No other culture allows that. Chinese culture dictates what Chinese culture is. Individuals don't dictate it. So what you can't just say, oh, I'm a proud black woman. What does being a proud black woman mean to you? Where does it come from? Doctrinally, show me. Show me where some great thinker or orator, female or male, who came before you is speaking to this behavior and this psyche that you are exhibiting. And if you can't, then that means that psyche and behavior is not a part of the solution. It's a part of the problem. It's a part of the programming. It's a part of the false indoctrination. And then you're identifying with it, thus defending or defensive of it. If anyone ever seems to check me as a man or check you as a woman, then we become defensive because I feel attacked. And that is being a little white girl, as I call it, or a little white boy. Because whenever you check Karen, she feels attacked. attacked. Whenever you check Peter, he feels attacked. When you check their racism or check their arrogance or check their sense of entitlement, they feel attacked. Well, what happens to a black man when you check our sense of entitlement in a relationship, or our sense of lack of appreciation, or our sense of arrogance in a relationship? We feel attacked. Well, guess what happens when you check a black woman with her sense of, and instead of us feeling attacked, we got to start feeling, hey, this is called medicine. When you go to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor, they are giving you medicine, mental medicine to get the mind right, to regulate the self, to regulate the hormones, to regulate the behavior, because my behavior, my hormones, my mentality is off. I'm gonna check the car tires, make sure they
Yeah,
ain't
yeah,
slashing.
yeah. Yes, please do. Last question for you, Basach. I know you have to go. And I wish maybe we can continue the conversation. If you're online and you're watching
We
the Vantage Point
always can.
and you want to hear more on this topic specifically, comment below and say another one, another one. And so we know if we should continue this conversation because we have so many more things and topics to cover. And guests and Basesh is really gracing us with his presence. The last question for you is we didn't mention Bibi Shaharazad Ali, which I love her so much. And in her works, the Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man and the Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, she lays out the different categories of women and men, right? And from age type to everything. So, as we're speaking about the fairy tale, are these byproducts of the fairy tale, or are these the I'll put it that way. Are these byproducts of the fairy tale? And that way you can help us to see it clearer.
When you speak of a byproduct, these are not byproducts. These, you talking about the TV shows and the reality TVs of today?
No, us ourselves, right? How she lists the different black women and black men. And she also goes into age. She goes into the black woman that dresses this way, the black woman that thinks this way, the black woman that behaves this way. She literally lays out how they think, how they look, how they speak, how they behave. And I'm asking, are these, because you're giving us the fairy tale and you're saying these are different characters. So, in the way in which it's described, how does that relate to the fairy tale?
Well, first and foremost, let's be mindful. Bibi Shahrazad Ali is speaking as a member of the Nation of Islam under the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. She didn't just write Black Man's Guide to Understand the Black Man and Woman. She wrote, Are You Still a Slave? She wrote, Are You Still Eating Pork? She wrote, Day by Day, a day in the life of a Muslim. She wrote how to tell if your man is gay or bisexual. She wrote more than just that one book. She wrote Things Your Parents Should Have Told You. She wrote The Urban Survival for Years to Come, which Elijah Muhammad was teaching. So she was doing all of these things and addressing them as a member from the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, not under Baba Minister Farrakhan, but under Baba Elijah Muhammad. That was her teacher. So her consciousness is coming from a place of someone who had taught her. I want to make sure that's clear first and foremost, right? Now, so she stood on someone's shoulders. Now, how does that, the last piece, repeat that one more time. How does that,
And I know you can't speak to her works, but
right?
from what you're teaching, I'm asking the relationship, if any, it may not be any, but in how she categorizes and describes the black woman and the black man into different behavior types, etc. Is that a byproduct of what you're naming to be the fairy tale?
It
How
is a
does it
byproduct of the
relate?
fairy tales. And I'm
Okay,
speaking to her works, right? We
okay.
can speak to her works and we can glorify
Mhm,
her works and we can refer people to her works so they can
mhm.
benefit from it. But that is
Right.
the residual, the condition that she's describing and trying to help us fix comes about because of the fairy tale. The fairy tale is the life that the so-called Canaanite or European and Arab and Aryans and all the people who have enslaved us in the enslavement of melanated people or black people globally, they rip. And out of that enslavement, we started to develop a sense of seeking self identity. When we started to seek self identity, the only identity that was available for us to view and to try to emulate was them. Right? I wrote a book called Are You Slave Mind, Student Mind, or God Mind? And in there we explain that the slave ends up wanting to be like the enslaver, because to be the enslaver means that I will guarantee that no one will ever re-enslave me. So I think in psychology they say hurt people hurt people. A hurt person is going to hurt other
Yes.
people. Hurt
Yes.
people hurt
Hurt
people.
people
So
all
to
the time.
keep, we've got to recognize that this
Hmm.
conditioning, the fairy tale sets in motion. I wrote in the book you were holding up, children's fairy tales
Yes.
breed adult religions. People
Yes.
walking around believing, a child believing that a man named Aquaman can dive in the water and swim with the whales is no different than certain branches of Christianity telling us that someone died on a cross, literally, for us.
Yes. Yes.
You follow that? And I'm talking about the European. He came down from, right, Valhalla, and he's on this cross, and he dies for you and me. That's fantastical. That's amazing. That's a Cinderella story.
Yes.
Now,
Hmm.
I'm not saying there's no Messiah. I'm not saying there's no African theology. I'm not saying there's no true Christian doctrine or true Hebraic doctrine. I'm saying that is fantastical.
Right.
You follow
Hmm.
that someone's going to come one day and make it all better. That's Prince Charming. They just substituted
Right.
Jesus for Prince
Right.
Charming. So you get in the church Jesus, you get in a fairy tale Prince Charming, and then we spend the rest of our lives trying to break and mold a man to become this surreal man. Jesus is surreal. He don't have sex. He's a great guy to be in a relationship with. White Jesus, because he never has sex. He can look at all the women walk by and never look at nobody. He's never tempted because he's above temptation. You know what I'm saying? He can sing. He can multiply fish and bread. He can provide for you. He can heal you. He can raise the dead. If your mama gets sick, he can bring her back. That's a wonderful fairy tale. And he's being used to replace the female fairy godmother in many of the tales, and it just keeps flipping back and forth, and it removes reality. We're identifying with the enslaver's mentality. I say it again. We become white boys and white girls in black skin. A little white girl and a little white boy. We're talking to black men who oftentimes are little white boys in black skin. The psyche has been castigated. Someone has deflected their mentality about us into us. There's a phrase, I don't know if you're still here, Sister Azandi. There's a phrase I always ask you to reference when a person is putting what they think about you into you,
Right. Yes. Projecting. Yes.
projecting, right?
Hmm.
Black women are not bad. Black women, the hate of our hair, they used to make you cover your hair.
Yes.
Can you imagine they made a rule that said black women had to wrap their head and wear it wrapped? So it made you feel a
Yes.
sense of shame to have it
Mm.
wrapped. So what's going to be the natural counter that you're going to move towards? Unwrapping it, extending it. That was it's all a game. It's by design, right? You have natural curls. You go and get your hair pressed or permed, bone straight, and then go and let somebody put curls in it. That's something wrong. Your hair is naturally curly. Add some oils, this, that. Boom, you got curly hair naturally. No, go and sit in the chair, get the chemical, bone straight man, bone straight woman. Now go with the bone straight hair and let people put rollers in the bone straight hair to give you the curls that you just took out. You have natural eyebrows, shave them and draw them in. It doesn't make sense. You have natural makeup called melanin, powder it up, and then add red and blue rouge and eyebrow, whatever it is they call mascara. That doesn't make sense. You have a natural
That is
body
true.
shape, but you're gonna go put on a shaper to give yourself a natural body shape. You have a
Right.
natural shape. You're gonna go get a BDL to now get and then wear a shaper to shape the thing that you already had.
Right.
And we can't see that that's a fairy tale. And how many of our daughters
Mm,
and sisters are getting diseases, getting all type of the body's now reacting to the BDLs, and this is a major. It's not something I'm just saying. The dangers of it. People's bodies begin to reject. They don't tell them that. So none of what we're saying is coming from a place of hating someone. What we're saying is coming from a place of loving people enough to say someone BDL's body will reject at some point. Right? Is it BBLs? I'm saying BBLs. Hmm? A portion of the transferred fat, a BDL doesn't involve rejecting your own fat as it comes from your body. However, a portion of the transferred fat, 30 to 50%, is reabsorbed by the body, which is normal and expected part of the process. Surgeons account for this fat loss by initially, now let's look at it. The dangers. Is it possible that my body rejected or reabsorbed the fat? There's people talking about it, but no one's going to talk about it because it doesn't feed the fantasy. Anything that's counter,
right,
again, cognitive dissonance.
right.
So the fairy tale is the biggest. Now, are there tribal tales our children should learn? Yes.
Mm,
Should we read our children stories at night? Not a bedtime story, just a book. Let's read a book. So they learn before you go to sleep, read. Yes, 100%. But should it be Cinderella? No. Should it be Glorilla? I mean, what's the other one? Not Glorilla.
mm,
Hansel and Gretel? No. Should it be
mm,
Snow White and the Dwarfs? No. It should be African centered, Caribbean centered, indigenous, Native American centered, culture, because
yes.
our stories had morals, not looking for a fairy tale, not looking for Prince Charming.
Mm,
Our princes were real people in our stories.
yes.
The stories
Yes.
of Sundiata. There's a
Mm,
story you can get for your son or daughter. The story of Sundiata, and it's a real story of the founder of the great Songhai Empire, Sundiata,
okay.
and how he was
Mm,
born and he couldn't walk for many years. They thought something was wrong with his legs. Real story that will give the child the ability to overcome with people that look like them, who come from a real situation, not no magical fairy tale. He had to learn to fight. He had a person who was assigned to him to teach him how to fight and how to stand up for himself. And eventually, as years went on, he eventually was able to walk and would take all that he learned. That's a real story. Or you can read your child the story of Imhotep, who was a polymath, and how he got started, and how he learned to build mastabas, and how he had to be used to help save his people one day by preserving foods and things of that nature. We have real stories, but about some white chick who's cleaning floors and talking to mice and birds, and some fairy godmother who herself obviously ain't dealing with reality because she's walking around in a ball gown and a little thing in her hand with a star at the end. And she hears all the suffering of Cinderella and shows up one day and says, "All right, I'm gonna look out for you by turning you into a princess for one night. And I'm gonna turn these rats into your butlers. And that pumpkin over there that's spoiling, I'm gonna turn it into a chariot. And those other rats over there, and that cat and that dog, we're gonna make them horses." That's body modification. You just turned a rat into a person. You just turned a cat and a dog into horses. That's called body modification. We've just introduced body dysmorphia to a child's mind,
mm,
and we
mm.
don't even realize we just did it.
That you can
Because
change.
so that you can change yourself to
Hmm.
something other than you. I ain't saying,
Come on,
we're not
Dr.
saying
Nash.
to the child, let's
Hmm.
lift weights, let's go jogging and get in shape. No,
Right.
I can magically change you.
Mm,
I can make you what you're not.
mm,
And if I do that for you, I'm your fairy godfather or fairy godmother.
mm.
No, that's a surgeon, and they don't like you. They're destroying you.
That is
But
so
it's
true.
introduced. But at
Mm,
midnight, everything turns back.
Yep.
except for one slipper. I thought everything turns back. If everything turns back, there shouldn't be a glass slipper. So now there's even more irreality. The dress
Mm-hmm.
turns back, the rats turn back, the dogs turn back, the cats turn back, the pumpkin turns back. Everything turns back except the glass slipper.
Mm.
Excuse me, except yeah, the glass slippers, because the one she's wearing and the one he finds.
But
That's an
that's the part that
irreality.
keeps you in the illusion.
And
Hmm.
it sells shoes.
Right.
Because now every little girl,
Right.
oh, come on, y'all know y'all used to all walk around. My sisters, they did this.
I sure
They had those fake
did.
plastic slippers
I
and
sure
they walk
did.
around them face and the feet sliding out the end. And then what happens after that? As you get older, women start getting high heels where your feet are sliding out, big toes hanging over the top because you don't got no, this is real. You don't got the heels that's
Mhm.
too high, and you ain't got no front. So the foot's sliding out the thing, but you feel comfortable with that because as a little girl, you were walking around with your feet hanging out the front of the shoe. Now people can not like what I just said, but everybody knows what I said is true.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that. Yeah, so this has been great, Basef. Thank you. It's a great way to end. No, but thank you so much for your time. We had so much more, we really did, but I keep seeing a lot of another one. So we might have to come back on because we didn't touch religion, we didn't touch Prince Charming, we didn't touch. It's a lot. It's a
Well, we'll
lot
come back
to
on.
unpack here.
You say when. If it's next week, week after, whatever week, you say when, I'll be here.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your time. And I want to thank everyone joining us, everyone tuning in, for being here and for supporting this message of truth. It's not about me, it's not about our guests, it's about the message of truth. And so if you want to be a part of spreading this message, please share, like, and comment. The comments are open. Please comment. And again, we like to end with scripture. We like to end with a Bible verse, a scriptural verse. And we spoke last week about Genesis. So I want to kind of bring that back up because we're following someone else's imagination. So remember what Genesis 6:5 tells us. And God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And so we're following someone else's imagination who only sees evil. And so we want to keep our head on the swivel, as my teacher would say. Open your eyes and pay attention because the devil is a he, a she, a they, and a them. And he comes in all forms. And he definitely comes in all fairy tales. So until next week, we'll see you. Have a blessed, peaceful weekend and be safe.